Nikkei Asia News Roundup
with Jada and Brian. Welcome to the Nikkei Asia News Roundup with your hosts Jada and Brian,
bringing you the latest updates and insights on the dynamic world of Asia and more.
Now let's delve into the headlines. This program is brought to you by Nikkei.
Chinese rare earth mining in Myanmar may be sending toxic substances into waterways flowing through Thailand into the Mekong River, local people and experts say, raising worries about the impact on agricultural exports, tourism, and food safety.
South Korea's LG Electronics is expanding appliance production in India and looking to list its local subsidiary, aiming to capture demand in the country's rapidly growing home electronics market.
Japan is considering purchasing Turkish-made military drones that have had combat success in Ukraine as it seeks to bolster its defense capabilities for modern warfare.
Australia is debating a ban on credit and debit card transaction fees, which cost the country's consumers 1.2 billion Australian dollars, or 781 million US dollars annually.
Brazil is attempting to cultivate China as a promising alternative export target for coffee beans following the imposition of U.S. tariffs. But the market doubts the move will be enough to keep international coffee prices from slipping.
With Bangladesh having secured a lower or equal U.S. tariff rate to its competitors, the country's garment makers are now expecting increases in orders of as much as 15% compared with the previous season or year, amid a reconfiguration of regional supply chains. Now moving on to the next segment.
Chinese EV makers win Southeast Asians over with cut price deals. Southeast Asia has embraced the influx of Chinese automakers offering attractive deals to gain market share. The region's EV sales grew 79% year-on-year in the first half of 2025, fueled by aggressive capacity ramp-ups and localized assembly by Chinese brands, said an associate director at consultancy Counterpoint Research. These brands expanded model availability, lowered entry prices, and benefited from strong domestic demand in Vietnam, where local brand VinFast has racked up substantial sales. But as Chinese automakers are duplicating the aggressive pricing strategies seen in China in Southeast Asia, cutting between 8% and 20% off original prices according to Nikkei Asia's research, their rise is raising concerns about sustainability and the impact on local economies. These Chinese players are also eroding the long-standing lead of Japanese car makers, whose cautious approach to electrification has left gaps in the market. Japanese car brands once commanded over 90% of the Thai and Indonesian markets. Chinese car manufacturers will account for 30% of worldwide vehicle sales by 2030, with the largest growth anticipated in emerging markets such as Southeast Asia, the Middle East and Africa, and South America, according to a projection by consultancy Alex Partners.
Cambodia fumes over alleged Thai copy of Angkor Wat. The UNESCO World Heritage Convention was adopted in 1972 to promote international cooperation to protect assets of universal value, but sometimes it becomes fodder for political disputes instead. Shortly before the border dispute between Thailand and Cambodia erupted into open conflict in late July, the two countries clashed verbally over a Buddhist temple being built in Thailand. The structure looks extremely similar to Angkor Wat, the famed World Heritage Site in Cambodia, fueling accusations of copying. At issue is Wat Phra Mangfa in the northeastern Thai province of Buriram. The 200 by 150 meter site, with structures built from sandstone blocks, has much in common with Angkor Wat, from statues of Naga, a mythical divine serpent, and carvings on the walls to the corridor around the main building. Angkor Wat, constructed in the 12th century, is a symbol of the Khmer Empire that once controlled much of Southeast Asia. It is treasured by Cambodia's Khmer ethnic majority and appears on the country's national flag. The fight over Wat Phu Mampha flared up after a clash in disputed territory in May that spurred a dramatic fraying of ties between Cambodia and Thailand, with public sentiment in each country toward the other souring. To Cambodia, the temple looked like a provocation by Bangkok.
And now for news highlights. In this episode, Jada and I have a discussion about a recent article that has particularly captured our attention.
And today we'd like to talk about one of the most popular animes in Japan, Gundam.
It's not just anime.
No.
No, it's a whole empire
Yep.
of intellectual property.
Yes.
Which is owned or licensed by a company called, you might have heard of it, Bandai Namco. Which, let's list some of the intellectual properties that they either own or have licenses to or are associated with. Pac-Man, Tamagotchi, Anpanman, One Piece, Demon Slayer, Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
All of these are really famous stuff. But the one that makes them the most money, I guess you could say their crown jewel, is Gundam.
Yes, because they have the rights to Gundam entirely. Like, Bandai has it entirely, right? Because
Yes.
all the other ones, for Demon Slayer, Sony has rights to it as well.
Depends on which one is owned.
Yeah, but Gundam is entirely Bandai's.
And they are expanding massively with it. For people unfamiliar, Gundam is originally started as a 1979 anime about fighting robots. It gets a little more complicated than that. And I am not the biggest expert on it either, but it's people inside these fighting robots, and there's space adventures and a whole bunch of other human drama involved.
Yeah, I've actually never seen it myself, but I have heard from fans that, it's not just how cool the robots are, but there is really good human drama portrayed in the anime, and that's really drawn in a lot of people, it seems like.
And the other thing that's drawn people in is a thing called Gunpla.
Yeah.
Which is making scale models of these robots.
And it seems like the article points out that it really sort of, it was already, popular in Japan for a certain target of people. But when COVID happened, a lot of people were, at home, then looking through streaming platforms, as well as looking for hobbies to do at home. So they're Gunpla is the perfect thing if you want to build something at home. Spend your time on something.
It's you make the models. They're usually maybe I was going to say a foot, maybe a third of a meter tall, 30, something like that. And they're very meticulous. They're very detailed. And, shields and arms and various appendages coming off, and you have to paint them and style them. And so much so, I've never built one. I don't know that much about Gundam, but during my COVID time, I watched a lot of Star Trek, and I admit I have a Starship Enterprise. And when I painted it, I used Gundam paint. Because
what is Gundam paint?
You go to a hobby store, and there's the paint for the plastic models, and there's a couple brands there, but there's always a little shelf of Gundam paint, which is specialized for the models because they have their own colors. But you also have to get really detailed on those models. And so maybe it's just a perception, but I feel like those colors are a little silkier, a little smoother. They're like cashmere compared to a fine cotton.
Okay.
And I can see why people get a little obsessed over it, because there is an attention to detail and quality. So much so that Bandai has a position called the Chief Gundam Officer.
Yeah. So the reporters interviewed him, so we have the story has a couple of comments from him as well, but yeah, you can tell how serious they are about Gundam with that, having that position, having particular paint for the Gunplas.
Yeah, and the thing about Gunpla is that they're aiming for Gundam and the models and the entire intellectual property to have most of its sales, majority, more than 50%, to be overseas.
Yeah.
And so far, it's doing really well. They're focusing on people that come to Japan, sometimes specifically or very much put priority on their visit to visiting stores that sell Gunpla and other Gundam paraphernalia that you can only get in Japan.
Yeah, and they're expanding stores that sell these specific Gunplas across like outside of Japan, and have plans to expand it until 2030 or something. So, more people overseas can buy it at those sort of stores. And as you mentioned, people are coming to Japan and actually purchasing it in the country as well.
And they just opened up a new factory, and they're planning to have in Japan, and they're planning to have tours of the factory.
Oh, I bet that would be so popular.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of factory tours I've ever been on there. I've been to a cheese factory when I was a kid. That was fascinating, but I could see being a fan and going to watch how these things are made.
Yes. I think Bandai, also the story points out that it's unique and that compared to other sort of Japanese rivals or competitors, it oversees a lot of, as you mentioned, it's not just anime. They make toys. They sell it at stores. They're working on a live-action movie, Hollywood movie.
A Hollywood live-action movie, the first one.
Yeah, so they handle a lot of the layers of how this Gundam is expanding outside. And Sony does sort of a kind of a similar one, but they don't make toys themselves. But also, I feel like this year, a lot of Japanese sort of entertainment companies are doing very well. Sony is doing very well with the Demon Slayer movie. Nintendo, obviously, is doing very well with the Switch 2. So it seems like, a year for Japanese entertainment companies.
Yeah, it feels like 2 decades ago or so, the Japanese pop culture boom started, and then it went away. Not entirely, but now it's really coming back. And Gundam's one of the ones leading the charge.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the close of today's episode.
We look forward to having you join up again for the next edition of the Nikkei Asia News Roundup.
Stay informed, stay curious. Until next time, I'm Jada.
And I'm Brian. See you again, and take care. This program is brought to you by Nikkei.